Welcome everybody to Legal Tech Week for March 28th, 2025. It's the Legal Week hangover edition of the show. We're going to be talking a little bit about Legal Week. All of us on here just got back from New York and attending that. A few of us are still gearing up to go off to ABA Tech Show in a couple days. But until then, we will look back a little today at our impressions on the show. And we also have a guest panelist to help us do that because he was there and has some unique experiences that he might want to share with us during the week. Um, Doug, why don't we kick it off with you introducing yourself and then we'll go around.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Doug Austin, editor of eDiscovery Today, and a prelude to what Bob was referring to. Don't take travel tips from me when it comes to going to Legal Week.
Okay. Steve Embry.
Hi, I'm Steve Embry. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads about legal technology and innovation. I also write for the Kentucky Bar Bench and Bar magazine from time to time, the One Legal blog, and also Above the Law every now and then.
All right, Nikki Black.
Oh, and one more thing. I am
Oh,
co-chair of the ABA Tech Show, which hopefully everybody will attend with us all.
For another week, you're like the lame duck chair, right? You're going to be chair for a little bit longer.
For
How does that
one
work?
more week.
One more week.
One more week in a day.
All right. And are you going to go out peacefully, or is it going to be
Oh,
any
yes.
kind of a?
Go away. Well, we're going to go out with a bang because the show's
Okay,
going to be
okay,
great.
okay. You're not going to like try and take over the ABA headquarters in Chicago or anything, though.
There are some concerns, but not a takeover by me.
All right, Nikki Black.
I am the principal legal insight strategist for Finipay, parent company of MyCase, LawPay, CasePeer, and DocketWise. I write legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, Daily Record, and I also write our legal industry report along with a lot of help from my team, obviously, getting the whole thing ready to go. I am hoping to recover this weekend, and I'm raring to go for the next conference for tech show.
Does principal? Did I ever ask you this before? Does principal legal insight strategist mean there are other legal insight strategists, and you're the top one, or are you the only
We
one?
have other SME experts, but I'm the only one with that title, and I am the only principal. So I'm the top dog of nothing.
Welcome to my world. And Joe.
Joe Patrice from Above the Law, a podcast called Thinking Like a Lawyer. And yeah, I plan to be an, April 4th truther and storm the Capitol to keep Steve Embry in charge as president forever. Yeah.
I'm not sure that I want you quite to be that aggressive.
Make Tech Show great again.
Right.
Yeah, Nikki, Mark just mentioned your mic. For some reason, your mic is a little soft, Nikki. I don't know why that is. I thought that was my volume, but then Joe talked and I realized it wasn't that.
I don't know what it could be. Nothing's different. Sometimes it just feels to me like it.
Now it's better, actually. I don't know.
A little bit better. If you're in a different room, sometimes that happens. I don't know.
Output volume, I'll turn it up. Is that a little better? It was down a little bit.
Yeah.
The input volume's probably the issue.
Input's really low.
Yeah, you got to turn that up.
Input?
All right.
Is that better?
Yep, there you go.
There you go.
I wonder why
Got
it's so low. Oh, really? The output's not? Why isn't? Oh, the output's what I'm hearing from you. The input is
Yeah.
what I'm providing. I see. Yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought that through. All right. Awesome. Perfect.
This tech
Now
tip
you'll be
sheet
able to hear
was
all of my
brought to you.
brilliance. You guys are all so lucky.
All right. Well, so we're going to spend part of the show just talking about Legal Week because we all just got back. And I don't know, what about to start with just some kind of general impressions. What people, what did people think about this one as opposed to past years? Is more of the same? Anything different about it? Any thoughts?
Oh, there weren't as many big parties.
That's true. Yeah, they were smaller gatherings or smaller groups,
Yeah.
not the big, huge ones like there have been in the past. Yeah,
Anyone
that's
want to
true.
take a stab at why?
Can't
Uh,
imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah. So yeah,
no reports
not
of major heterosexual harassment either this year.
true. We there wasn't a fist fight, so like we've come off it's a very different legal week from that perspective.
There was
I don't know. I
Penisgate,
thought.
though.
Oh wait, what was Penisgate? Oh wait, no, I knew about this, right? Well, what's going on?
You were might have been a little cloudy at that point, but it was in the Bridges bar apparently.
Yeah.
Uh, some guy decided that that would be a good place to show it to the bar.
Yes. Yes, I did hear about
And the
that. Yeah.
police came um, and apparently arrested the guy. I haven't had a chance really. I got this from an eyewitness who told me about it. I wasn't there at the time, but the eyewitness told me about it. But I haven't in any way attempted to confirm that single source of this. But Joe, you said you saw the police come in, I think.
I
Did
did
you
see
tell
the
me that?
police. Yes. So yeah, I did see police come in. I didn't know at the time until later why that was. And I have since I had kind of put it to the side. But yes, now that you mention it, I do remember that.
Was
Is this
it a,
somebody
yeah.
with the conference, or do we
Yeah,
know?
I was so somebody from the conference who was
Oh.
had a few too many.
I know,
Well,
but
you know, it's not a legal week until the police show up. So
Right?
I can't imagine how many you have to have in a professional conference to think that that might be a good idea. Like, I don't know what that looks like. Like, I can't imagine how many you would have to have just in any public context. I think that's a good idea, but I can see that happening. It's more likely than at a professional conference. Like, what was
I think
going through his head?
Well, I think
I think the
what was
problem
going
is
through his
somebody.
head literally,
Yeah.
because I think he took it out for a reason to avoid a trip to the men's room, and
Oh.
so
Yeah.
that would save him that much going back and forth. So the question of what was going through his head is quite literal.
What's important about legal tech is it's all about finding efficiencies wherever you can. Um, that saved at least 0.1 hours. I mean, I think this is someone who really got the spirit of the event.
This was
And
an
AI wasn't
end-to-end
involved.
solution.
Laterra is already trying to buy him.
Oh, all right. Was there
But
anything
yes,
serious to
well,
talk
okay.
about?
Let's transition to be like slightly serious about it. I thought, I don't know what your all's impressions are. I haven't had a chance to really write anything because the world is melting down. But I thought that I felt like the conversation was a little more nuanced and contextual this year. I felt like the last few years, AI has been presented as it can do this and that and this and who knows what else. It can do everything. And it was very hyped up as though we can't even think of all the things it can do. And I think that's off-putting in a legal profession, while that in normal sales, that might be it does everything. In legal, I think that has been off-putting because people think if it can do everything, it can find a way to do everything wrong. And I felt like at this show, multiple meetings I had, unrelated meetings would talk about AI very contextually. It can help you do X. It can help you do Y. Even going so far as to walk away from the idea that it can do some other thing they can't think of. It was very much pitched as, this is the niche need it does for you, and look at how good it is at that, which I thought was interesting because I do think I've been a little skeptical of its magic bean power, so I was glad to hear people being a little more reserved. And I think that probably translates into customers feeling better about it. I don't know.
there was still a lot of the boy. Look at this new thing we've got, and it'll be out in third or fourth quarter of.
That's always going to happen, no matter what
I,
it is, right?
I guess that's right. Although it didn't seem to happen that much pre-generative AI, but if we can ever remember such a time.
Right.
We went to conferences and talked about things other than generative AI.
Well, it
Yeah.
was e-discovery, so I kind of like this transition to e-discovery plus generative AI, or just generative AI, quite personally. But I thought there were two interesting things, that sort of themes that emerged. One is one that I wrote in my Above the Law article that I didn't submit in time, but I'll pop it in the comments. And that was that it's this idea of software being expanded beyond its original use. Generative AI is allowing companies to, whether it was document management or practice management or e-discovery. Initially, this software had a basic use. And what companies have done is they've looked at the data that they manage, that they have access to on behalf of their customers, or that is their customers' data that they manage. And they're finding ways to use generative AI to expand the original purpose of their software. And it's really interesting to see all the things that they're doing that are truly impactful. But then the other thing I thought was interesting that I didn't touch on in my article is everybody keeps saying that their software is going to become the software of record. Everyone's going to stay in their software to use the generative AI. Their software is going to be the pane of glass into X, Y, or Z. And there's no way everybody's software can be the base software that everybody, every firm works from. So I think ultimately what it's going to kind of end up being is people are going to access generative AI through two different contexts. Their software in which they practice law, that they do legal work, and their software that runs the business side of their firm. So I think ultimately there's sort of going to be two home bases from which most people, at least not necessarily operate, but access generative AI functionality through. And that's my thinking on that. But again, I did include that in the article. But those are two things that I thought were super interesting that I noticed in the conference.
Well, that was something we
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah,
several
I would-
times last week at briefings, I think, was this issue of several of us were in the same briefings at the same time, and you go into the briefing and the vendor says, okay, now our application is going to be basically your home base. You can do everything here. You can
Right.
access in some cases it is a DMS, or you can access your DMS. LexisNexis says you can access your DMS through us. And that document says we are your DMS, so we're the natural place for you to do everything, create contracts and use AI and do everything else. And so it's like every vendor now wants them to be your sort of home base where you kind of do a lot more, as you say, a lot more than you would have previously done just on their platform. Like, again, I kept thinking it was interesting that during the entire LexisNexis briefing, at no point did anybody ever use the words legal research, because they're not a legal research company anymore. They don't talk about legal research anymore. So it's an interesting evolution, and it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out going forward.
Yeah, I sort of
Yeah.
noticed the same thing, and I brought that up in the NetDocs presentation we went to. That they're all the document management, but now you've got the LexisNexis's of the world saying we do all these things and we'll do the document management. So it'd be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Sorry, Doug, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, no worries, Steve. Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a bit of AI use case creep where, the platforms are getting into other areas. And, of course, I talked to a couple of companies that aren't e-discovery companies, but they're really starting to do ECA type things and, trial prep type things. And I'm thinking from a standpoint of the competitive landscape's going to be a lot murkier now, because you're really starting to compete with different companies you haven't competed with before, because they're all creeping into other areas.
Yeah, I agree. I thought another kind of sort of dominant theme of a lot of the presentations I went to, and Nikki, I think you talked on this in your article too, is just the whole idea of agentic AI and how that's kind of taking, it's sort of like, it felt a lot like last year at Legal Week. A lot of the conversation was about all the cool things we're going to be doing with Gen AI over the next year. And then a year later, it seemed like a lot of companies, in fact, had put out some fairly sophisticated products using Gen AI, and we've certainly made a lot of progress since last year in terms of some of what's been developed using this technology. But now the conversation is more, now what's the next step? And the next step is really going to involve being able to use agentic AI to create sort of multi-step processes and emulate lawyers' workflows and sort of take a task from point A to, maybe point not quite all the way to the end of the workflow, but move it along more quickly through the steps of a workflow using agentic AI. And that was another thing I heard a lot of vendors talking about this year and demonstrating in some cases.
It's interesting, Bob, that you bring that up. I've been to a couple of non-legal conferences, and some of the presentations at those conferences were along the lines of the agentic AI is a good idea, but it's just not quite there yet. And that was a different feeling I got from the vendors at Legalweek. It was more like, it's here and we're doing it right now. That'll be in the third quarter though, or maybe. So I don't know. I guess it will remains to be seen.
Yeah, I thought one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
No,
One
you go
other
ahead.
thing I'll add is that last year I kept asking companies for where are the case studies, where are with the clients who can say we've been using it for this and this. And this year it seems like we're finally starting to get some of those case studies because I saw several that had actual named clients and named projects where they did this and had these results and so forth. So I think that's going to be needed to help with adoption because we've got so many of the, even though it's apples versus oranges, we've got so many of the fake case citation stories it's almost not even news anymore, and you kind of need some good news to offset that bad news.
So a quick footnote to somebody that said in the chat about case text being sunsetted by Thomson Reuters. I don't know if anybody has, or I haven't written about it, but I did hear it from a source there a while ago. But there's a funny thing is that it's actually a lot of their case pages are still online. If you like go to OpenAI and do a legal research question using like deep research on OpenAI, you're going to get a lot of cases that come up from case text as of 2 weeks ago. Anyway, the last time I tried it. So those cases, a lot of their case stuff is still online, even though technically the company has been taken down.
There's also a reference in the chat to a monopoly of legal research. And I spoke to a company that I included in my Above the Law article called Servient that offers a legal research product. I'd never heard of them before. There's other companies out there that are also doing this, and it was AI grounded, and they're doing some really interesting things.
Describe. We got Describe AI going to be in the Startup Alley at Tech Show next week.
Yeah.
Mid-page also two legal research services in Startup Alley next week.
Yeah.
So drop what you're doing and fly to Chicago to see Startup Alley. And watch Steve take over at the ABA headquarters.
It's going to be a great week. And by the way, just our registrations and sponsorships are way up. So it's a great coming into it. I mean, we're 35% ahead of registrations where we typically are. So it's great. All because of me. Yeah. What can I say?
You did a good job. What about, so I did not go to a single panel during the week. I would have loved to have, but I just always make the mistake of booking myself too solid with briefings, and I think a lot of us make that mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake, maybe it's not, but for me it felt that way because I didn't leave a lot of time for other things. But did anybody go to panels? How were they? What'd you think?
I went to a panel primarily because I needed somewhere to sit and there was nowhere to sit. So I figured I'd go sit in a panel and answer some emails, but I picked one that sounded interesting. It was the American Arbitration panel run by them, and they talked a lot about their initiative related to the, what was it? The tutoring, or what was it? It was a course about AI. That's what it was. They announced a course about AI. So that was interesting. And I also went to part of a AI ethics one that our general counsel happened to be speaking on. So I thought that was fantastically interesting, of course. But those are the only two I made it to. I only made it to part of each of them, but they were interesting, I thought. And there were seats, which is also a bonus. It was hard to find somewhere to sit. This year was even worse than other years, I felt like.
Yeah, I actually managed to make it to, I think, 4 panels. One was the case law one on Monday, which of course that's right in my, because it was case law and e-discovery and ramifications. That was really good, a really good panel. Went to one on corporate legal department skills. So not an AI related panel, which was nice and a change of pace. And then a couple of AI related ones, one on ethics the corporate one, Pro Search conducted, and the ethics one, Relativity conducted. Justice Kennedy, Judge Rodriguez was on it. Judge Peck stood up and had a few things to say as well. That was good. And then there was one on kind of the human and the whole negotiation and how Gen AI is going to be. Is it going to be like TAR in terms of the parties negotiating the use of it and some of the considerations there? And that was a good one that Silo sponsored. So yeah, it was. I mean, all of them were good. As usual.
I went
Actually,
to one
yeah.
one that the AAL sponsored, and it was mainly focusing on the problem of not so much hallucinations, but the problem of various inaccuracies that are a little harder, take a little bit more time to catch. You see a case, Jones versus Smith, and you think, okay, let me look it up. Oh yeah, that's really a case. There is a Jones versus Smith. The only problem is it has nothing to do with what you're citing it for. So so they talked a little bit about that, and then I also went to the Rob Lowe keynote, which I wrote a piece on, which I assume we'll get to sooner or later.
Is here.
Yeah, I was gonna say one interesting. I had some interesting conversations with about cybersecurity and all, which, as I've said before, I think is going to become a bigger deal. Not just for a lot of reasons. We're aggressively trying to irritate international actors who are very good at cyber attacks, but also I think AI is involved too, because a lot of people are putting data in places that are potentially vulnerable. And on that note, I did have an interesting conversation with Clearbrief, not so much about Clearbrief work, but about trying to put together a working group. And one of the things they're doing is trying to put together a working group for like, how do we, talk about what we do with this stuff? Because I think a lot of folks, especially in discovery and all, you give a bunch of confidential stuff to another firm, and what do they do with it? Is it the other firm taking the stuff, potentially eyes only stuff you've sent to them, and then running it into an AI? Like, where does that go then? Like a real interesting issue that I hadn't really thought of until it was mentioned, but that's something that we need to get to the bottom of, back to what you're saying about like standardizing stuff.
By the way, speaking of Clearbrief,
Mhm.
another feature of the Startup Alley next week is going to be Clearbrief founder Jackie Schaefer singing a song she has written about legal tech or about Startup Alley. As if we, like, some people have the national anthem, we're going to have Jackie Schaefer singing her song about legal tech, which it's relevant to Startup Alley because a few years back when she participated in Startup Alley as a presenter, as a participant, she sang her entire pitch. Some will remember, and she was fantastic. She is a professional singer in the Seattle area, and she's really good. So that will be fun. So make sure you get there early to catch Jackie singing. So
And I would hasten to add on that note, Bob, this this is the 40th anniversary of the show, and on Friday night we will be having a big 40th anniversary party with an 80s theme for everyone's perusal. We have some people
will
who
you
are,
be
who are
singing at
taking that.
that?
We have some people who are taking that quite seriously and have purchased various materials online to make themselves very 80s like. So if for no other reason, you should come and see Baron Henley's outfit. It should be quite striking.
I'm pretty much still wearing the same jeans I've had since the '80s, so it doesn't. I think I'll be timely. What about Rob Lowe? So, Steve, you wrote about this kind of question of the celebrity
Yeah,
keynote speakers at the tech conferences, and we've been seeing this phenomenon a lot. I
yeah,
also did not see Rob Lowe, so I'm like totally out of the loop on this stuff. But
yeah.
uh,
It's kind of an interesting debate, and people sort of fall on one side or the other fairly stridently. They either think this is great to have somebody like Rob Lowe, or they think this is horrible. It's a legal tech conference and there ought to be a legal tech speaker. I will say I went to Rob Lowe's deal. It didn't have anything to do with legal tech and nothing to do with the law, except his father was a lawyer, or is a lawyer, 86 years old and still practicing, which was an interesting fact. He was a good storyteller, told a lot of interesting and humorous stories. But a couple of things I did notice. One, the room was packed, standing room only. Uh, I was sort of in the back, and I didn't see many people leave out of disgust. But the really interesting thing I thought about it, throughout the whole day after it was, people were talking about it. Sort of saying, "Did you catch Rob Lowe? And what did you think? And what is that good?" And it sort of occurred to me that that's kind of what you want out of a keynote. A lot of people coming, a lot of people sitting through it, and sparking conversations for better or for worse. Uh, it is kind of a trend that we've seen, particularly with the vendors. We with actors, and the actors are, by sort of definition, are good storytellers, so they are interesting. Next week at Tech Show, we have tried to sort of bridge the gap. We have Cory Doctorow, who's a technology commentator and famous for his enshittification theories. He kind of is between a big name and somebody that's familiar with technology, although not legal technology. So I suppose we'll probably hear a few snickers here and there that we're not having legal technology. But the other thing about somebody speaking as a keynote for that's in legal technology, we really don't have that many like really good technology speakers that are in that space. We've got a few, and the ones that are good tend to work for vendors. And as probably most of you recognize, you put a vendor speaker in the keynote role, then other vendors that are exhibiting at your show are going to bitch and moan about it, and maybe
Sure.
rightfully so. So it's kind of a tough call for to fill that spot. So I can sort of see why it's people are saying, what's just path of least resistance is to spend a lot of money, get a big draw, and fill up the place and have people talk about it. It was
Yeah.
also a nice. I noticed that was it Reveal? I think it was Reveal that sponsored it, and they had their name on all the seat backs and little placards on the seats. So a lot of advertising there.
Right.
But
Yeah, this is, I think, the third or fourth year in a row they've been sponsoring the main sponsor of the conference and the sponsors of all the keynotes and what have you. And yeah, I think this is the third year in a row we've had a celebrity, because last year was Bryan Cranston. The year before that it was LeVar Burton. The year before that, and all three of them were good. I was surprised. I went to the Rob Lowe keynote, and I was surprised. I pleasantly surprised. It was better than I thought it would be. I mean, even though it didn't really totally relate to what we do. He was talking a little bit about how AI is impacting the entertainment industry. Right. It's also impacting our industry. And so there were a few parallels drawn here and there and what have you. And I think the last legal oriented speaker we've had for the keynote was Dan Abrams, like 4 years ago. And I honestly didn't think he was very good. So maybe they just decided we better go get some people who really are good at storytelling and presenting and being good in an interview. So
Didn't Dr. O work as a law librarian or something at some point? I think when he spoke at the AAAA, I thought he made some reference to the fact that he had worked as a law librarian, or maybe just a librarian or something.
I don't remember that, Bob, but he did speak at AAL, and I think you were there, and he got a standing ovation, and that's good for, I mean, that's a bit of a tough audience that you think that didn't feel relevant to them. They wouldn't have been so enthusiastic. So hopefully we'll get the same kind of reaction.
Maybe it was
we have a
overall premise everyone loved, which was true. Instead of the internet and of tech, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
We have no. It's that it's a comment we have a comment over here about what about Legal Week moving to the Javits Center? If we heard, had any thoughts on that, heard anything about that? I will just say it's unfortunate. I will find it unfortunate because, I won't be able to stay at the Blakely next year, which was my goal.
Well, you wouldn't be able to stay at the Blakely anyway, it sounds like, whether it was going to be moving or not. So, yes, sadly, I don't think anyone's going to be staying at the Blakely anytime soon, if ever, based on what happened this week.
Why is
So,
that, though?
so
What?
yeah. Let's elaborate on that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think it's time to get to the hotel reviews.
Back to why you don't want to take travel tips from Doug Austin. Yes, I was the unfortunate, one of a few unfortunate souls who stayed at who chose to stay at the Blakely. Usually I stay at the Warwick. I was a little late going for hotel reservations, and the Warwick was like north of $400 a night. So I started searching elsewhere through Booking. Saw the Blakely was like a block away, had a decent rating. Most of the negative was that it's an old hotel and stuff like that, but in New York, that's not uncommon. So I was like, oh, okay, seems fine enough. So I checked in on Monday and got to the room, and the TV had said no signal. So the TV's not working. Then I try to call the front desk. I'm on the 10th floor. The phone's not working. So I go down to the front desk and say, hey, the TV's not working. And they gave me some sort of workaround to supposedly get it working. And then I said, oh, and by the way, the phones are out too. And they said, oh, yes, the phones are out. And I said, like, for a little bit. And they said, how long are you staying? And I said, well, till Thursday. And they said, yeah, the phones are pretty much be out the whole time. If you need something, you're just going to have to come down to the front desk for it. And I thought, well, that's great. So got back up there. The TV still didn't work. So I had to go back down again and say, can you please send somebody up, who came and gave a different workaround that got the TV working. So I didn't turn it off the entire time I was staying there because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get it back on. But the real challenge of it was the next day, after a full day on Tuesday of meetings and what have you, go back to the hotel. There's a guy sitting in the lobby that I know, and I said hi, and he said, you better go talk to the front desk. They're shutting down the hotel. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. So then I go to the front desk, and sure enough, they're shutting down the hotel. And he says, what's your name and room number? And I tell him, and he goes through the list of people that are supposedly staying there, and I'm not on the list, which of course then freaks me out even more, because I'm thinking they're going to come into my room and clear out my stuff. So they said, I said, well, I mean, what does that mean? Do we have to go? And he basically said, you can stay here tonight, but then you have to go tomorrow. So I'm like, great. So found another place to stay. And Wednesday morning, got my stuff out, left the Blakely, went over to the Hilton Garden Inn, which is 54th past 7th.
After you lifted the bar to get out the door, right? You had to
yes, I forgot that part. By the way, the reason the Blakely probably won't be hosting guests anytime soon is because it appears they've been evicted. At least that's what the note on the door seemed to say. So followed by a handwritten note saying, we're sorry to inform you the hotel's closed without further notice. But yes, the next morning, because the Blakely also doesn't have coffee makers in the room or serve coffee, so I had to go out for coffee. And when I go out and I get to the lobby in the morning, there's a wooden bar through the door handles. And I get to the door, and the security guard says, are you coming back? And I said, yeah, I'm just going to get coffee. And he said, okay, slide the bar out, put it aside. And then when you come back, put the bar back through the door handles. Which I mean, hey, that's a new definition of hotel bar, right? Yeah, it was crazy. And so then I get over to the Hilton Garden Inn, and I'm checking in, and the guy at the front desk says, I have to tell you, we only have one elevator working. Here's a QR code. If you scan that, if you text it, you need to text us when you need an elevator to come to you and bring you down. I'm on the 18th floor. So I check in, I text them. Sure enough, 10 minutes goes by, they don't come. So I walk down 18 flights of stairs to get out of the hotel. So and he said, you can cancel if you want and at no charge. And I'm like, dude, I've already been kicked out of one hotel. I'm not canceling a second
This is
hotel.
an
I'm gonna
improvement.
this is great. So yes, it is it's why you don't want to next year I think I'm going to be looking for a named hotel, one with a little bit better reputation, and see what and I have already written this as a LinkedIn post, by the way,
so the insane thing about
Remind me, Doug, next year to make sure I check with you to see where you're
right
staying.
where
So
find out where
make
I'm
sure not to
staying.
go there.
The insane thing when you say you're looking for a brand hotel, the insane thing is the Blakely was a Wyndham hotel, but that was a franchise relationship. They aren't actually owned by Wyndham, but they technically market themselves that way. I did some digging because I found this story fascinating, of like why this possibly could be, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they were there is a like lingering prosecution, it seems, in New York against the owners of that hotel for they were buying up lots of apartments and making them into Airbnbs illegally. So I think maybe because of that activity. The other thing, though, that's a little more funny is the last positive article I found about the owners of that hotel was like a month or so ago. We now accept cryptocurrency as a way to pay for your room. And anytime somebody proudly talks about crypto, I'm like, you're about to die. So that might be it too.
I feel like this is just a sign of things to come. We all act like this is just crazy stuff. Next year, this is just going to be totally normal. Like this is just going to be happening across the board. Crypto everywhere, hotels just shutting down halfway through your stay, elevators not working. We're all going to be as grateful as you were. We're going to be like, well, at least the elevator goes up. That's going to be a good thing.
Brought to you by Elon Musk.
Right?
It's funny because I was in the Sheraton, which is like all under construction and it's a mess. I don't know if anybody else was there, but the elevators there are the kind where you have to there's like the little dial pad, you have to press in your floor and then it tells you which elevator to go to. Although it always sent everybody to the same elevator all the time. And it took so long for the elevators to come that it was like this whole bonding experience. Phil Rosenthal from Fastcase was there. And a lot of legal tech people were there, and we were talking about some company should have sponsored the waiting area for the elevators there because they would have it would have been like a cocktail lounge or something. It would have been a great idea because we spent so much time. And then by the time you ever got to your floor, you had like bonded with everybody in the elevator. You got to they were like old friends at that point. So it was really kind of funny.
There
Well,
was
what
only
I-
one. There was
Go
only
ahead.
one working elevator. I hear that's how the Hilton Garden Inn worked too.
That's such a good
And
idea.
when I came out of my room one time at the Hilton Garden Inn, there's some lady doing yoga, waiting for her elevator. So I guess at least she found a productive way to use the time. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm going to go walk downstairs like I have been the most of the time I'm here. So yes, I'm due a better experience at the next one.
All right. What about any other thoughts on the whole Javits thing? The other thing to talk about, actually relevant to all this, is the sale of ALM. We haven't. I don't know. Does anybody? I think a lot of people were surprised to get to New York and find out. Guess what? ALM just got sold and acquired by a British company.
Merged, that is what they keep saying.
Did they say that?
They said merged, but
I
then
guess they did. You're right. They did.
all the other people are taking over. So I'm willing to read between the lines and say acquired.
Yeah, I mean, the CEO of ALM, Bill Carter, is stepping down or has stepped down, and legal law business research, which, as far as I can tell, is most known for Lexology, which is kind of a news aggregation thing, law firm article aggregation thing on steroids or something. Seems like an interesting move, but it was interesting because I don't. Most of the staff, I think Steve Salkin, I saw was in the audience. I know he works there, but I'm pretty sure most of the staff didn't know until Monday, even though there were news reports going out on Sunday, but there was like a town hall or something convened on Monday morning when they told everybody. So very weird timing to do it just before you're about to start Legal Week. I mean, why not wait till after Legal Week anyway to announce it?
It'd be interesting to see how that affects future legal weeks.
Maybe they wanted the hubbub. Or maybe they wanted the hubbub at the show.
Oh,
I mean,
by the way, Doug, I also heard that company had acquired that hotel where you stayed. Just coincidentally.
yeah, don't you hate when that happens?
That was a footnote in the merger announcement there. Yeah. And by the way, we got the Blakely too. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of was that it was probably one of those things where the deal had kind of been delayed a little bit, and they probably meant to announce it earlier. It just seems like they wouldn't have intentionally just announced it the day before, but then they were probably thinking, well, now we can't wait till after legal week because that would look bad if we like is acted like we kept it a secret all week. Maybe it was starting to leak out or something, so they probably just rushed the news out, I think.
I mean, the most encouraging thing I've heard is in the chat that the incoming CEO stopped by Faces and Names to just say hello to people, which that's showing interest in the in the new product, and the outgoing CEO did not. I no comment on that.
Hopefully that wasn't him at Bridges Bar, as we were talking about before, but
Yeah.
A new bar, faces and names and other body parts.
yeah. What happens to poor Faces and Names with Legal Week moving to Javits? Have to go out of business.
Charles Barkley has enough money. He'll be fine.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting that's his place. You've told me
Yeah.
that like
Oh,
10
yeah.
times this week, and I still forget.
I actually didn't know it until this week. Somebody told me this week, and I was like, really? Yeah. So
Is that why Kat Casey posted a picture of herself with him? That must
yeah,
have
she probably ran into him there. He hangs
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I saw him at the whatever the Conrad is now in that bar for a little bit. So yeah, he's around. I think they're doing the NCAA tournament broadcast from there. So yeah, he's around.
interesting.
All right, have we done Legal Week? Anything else we need to know? Anything else we want to say about it? Any like really interesting products or stuff that you saw that you hadn't been aware of?
So we saw what in the chat a while back. I can't remember. I didn't see it because I never actually made it to the floor. Did anybody see this test my witness thing?
I didn't either.
Oh, I got told about it, and I was like, well, it's too late now. But somebody told me about it. It's some like AI assisted way in which you can
Yeah.
break down the
Deposely.
video. Yeah.
Yeah, Deposely. Yeah. Yeah, they
No,
and
No, it's not
actually
Supposedly, it's a different company.
oh, is it
no,
different?
it's like it breaks down like the things your witness's face is doing that makes them less credible or something.
Well, that is
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Oh, didn't I talk about it last week on this show? I think I talked about another company that I just written about that's doing that also, but they haven't released theirs yet. But did I talk about that? Maybe I was supposed to write about it. It's all a blur. There's another company I talked to that's got that has one of these sort of AI deposition things that doing real-time transcription and real-time inconsistency checking and that sort of thing, like we've talked about. But they're also going to be launching a body language component to it that will read the witness's body language, and as you're it's basically playing out this read on like now the witness is they're crossing their legs and their eyes are shifting, and that means that maybe they're uncomfortable or something like that. And so it gives you this interpretation of their body language as the deposition is going live. How you would listen to that as a lawyer, I don't know. I think the idea is like the second chair listens to that or somebody else listens to that and sends signals, but that's kind of interesting too.
The more that I've become aware of neurodivergencies and how it's a significant portion of the population and how their response to things is.
You said neurodiverse. I thought you said nerd emergencies. Which there were a few of last week.
It works hard, the other way. But I've been increasingly skeptical of this body language. I used to always really buy into the body language prediction stuff, and now I'm becoming increasingly skeptical. I think it does not necessarily apply to the full population, but so I'll be interested to see how these the accuracy of these tools, and if you can even prove their accuracy. I mean, I don't know, how do you do that?
Well, like the truth or lie thing, I think there is something to what you're saying there. Like the truth or lie thing is going off of, you know, very convergent behaviors, and you're right, neurodivergency would impact that. The test my witness thing seems to be not so much based on what the individual witness might be thinking, but how do you convey that to a jury? And it tries basically to, like, you put your video in there of your witness talking, and it says things like, oh, if they want to be believed, they should, cock their head this way or move it. And that I think, even though, even if the witness themselves doesn't is divergent in some way, they're like, you would think that just by statistics, the majority of the jury would be looking for those more customary signs. So
Can you
it could be useful for that.
as a witness, it's really stressful to testify in court with all these
Yeah.
people looking at you. Can you imagine if, like, so when you tell about what happened and the guy, like, the defendant hit you, turn your head to the left when you say it hurt. Like, can you imagine trying to be like, remember, testify accurately, and then randomly, like, put your head to the side, or like put your arms on your lap, or like make eye contact? Like, can you imagine if you had like a list of things you had to do at certain points in your testimony, and how strange and robotic that might look if you were trying to comply with these requirements? That's so interesting to me. I wonder what that would actually look like in real life.
That's a good point.
Although I would imagine that some lawyers, as part of depot prep, are already doing a little bit of body language coaching. I don't know. Steve, you've done a lot of depositions. You ever do that? Did you ever tell your witnesses how to kind of what their demeanor should be, how they should position themselves?
Just in sort of a general sort of way. I mean, not
Yeah.
not as
Don't pick their
sophisticated as
nose.
that, but yeah, remember you're on camera. Don't
Yeah.
of course, always this thing is, don't add anything. But a lot of times I would have witnesses who, like particularly with salespeople, they, like, if you were deposing them, Bob, and you ask them a question, they would say, well, Bob, that's really a good question, and it, like, was kind of real cutesy kind of thing. And so a lot of times I, coach witnesses to not be cute with their language, and it's not a sales thing, that kind of thing. But no, not significantly on the body language, unless there was something really, outlandish, like, somebody
I also think, though,
keep your
that
hands down.
they tell women this more, trust your instincts. Like, if you feel like, oftentimes we are aware of like micro changes and things that let us know that something, this person isn't trustworthy, or they did something that's atypical from the norm. And so that's why I've always believed that there is like a validity to body language, because, to go to sort of be to go contrary to what I said previously, I think neurodivergent or not, like, we get used to certain types of behaviors and we can tell what's real and what's not. So I wonder if, or, whether the person's being truthful, and you get that by a feel of the person overall. So maybe someone who's a neurodivergent, you can tell they respond to things differently, but you can get a sense of what's truthful and what's not after you get a sense of how they actually behave on the stand as like a juror. And I wonder if a lot of these measures are counterintuitive, because I think people can tell when someone's being fake, or when they're trying to con you, or when they're trying to mask or hide the truth by using sort of certain types of techniques. So I just think it'll be interesting to see, someone mentioned, jury consultants have been doing this for years. Yeah, I wonder how effective it actually is. And I wonder how effective the AI tips are going to be. And are we at some point going to start to feel like we're not living in something grounded in reality? Because between AI and everything changing online, and then people acting weird because AI tells them to do it, like, what's reality going to look like down the road? But
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Nikki. That was always the thing about Amanda Knox, the woman who was arrested for killing her roommate in Italy, and so and I actually saw a presentation or I guess a keynote that she gave, and it was followed by a jury or psychologist, and the point the psychologist was making that a lot of people did not believe Amanda Knox because she would talk like this, and the audience would be here, and she'd do like this, and she didn't have normal mannerisms, but that doesn't necessarily mean she was lying. It was like she didn't have normal kind of mannerisms, and it's like the story about uh, Adolf Hitler. uh, Neville Chamberlain met with him several times and was convinced he was telling the truth. Winston Churchill never met Hitler and was convinced he was lying through his teeth. And it was all about kind of interpreting body language as opposed to looking at the real sort of truth of this or the what was actually being said. So it's a complicated area.
All right. Well, several of us, Doug is not. The rest of us are all headed off to Tech Show next week in Chicago.
There's still
We've
time
talked
to register, by the
we
way.
talked about the party. We've talked about the 40th anniversary party. We've talked about
Now to get
the
hotels.
The
trying
Chicago
to get good
Blakely is
hotels.
Yeah, it's
Hotels.
way better than the New York Blakely.
I'm like totally unfamiliar with this whole McCormick setup. I don't know. I'm curious to see what it's like. But the
I have
hotels are adjacent to the McCormick, right? They're all part of the thing.
Yeah, they're
advice over the last year. I have some advice. I was there, I spoke at ALA, and I was there for some other conference. Or maybe it was just, no, I've been there twice. There are signs, no matter which hotel you're coming from, that tell you this is how to get to the expo hall or to the conference or wherever it is you're going. Those signs are wrong. They're correct, they'll get you there, but it takes a
Great.
while. And there are much quicker ways that are not on those signs. I don't know why those signs take you these sort of circuitous ways, but you need to either talk to someone who works at the hotel or talk to people who've already made the trip and have like exhibitors or whatever, because there are much quicker ways to go than those signs. I can't even tell you what a difference it makes once you figure out the quicker way to go. So that's my piece of advice. I remember it was painful when I figured it out.
Sounds like Las
it's a little bit
Vegas.
different. It's a little bit different situation than the Javits Center because at McCormick Place there are hotels, there are bars, there are restaurants. There's not quite as many as there might be downtown Chicago, but there are options, and the hotels are all newer and nicer, and they've guaranteed to us that they will stay open for the entire show and will not close in the middle. Doug, in case Doug that changes your mind about going.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the Startup Alley because it's in the exhibit hall. There's been twice before it's been in the exhibit hall and it's been a disaster both times. So hopefully it isn't this time. But it's a whole new exhibit hall and a whole new setting, and I'm hopeful for it. But the very, very first ever Startup Alley was in the exhibit hall, and nobody could figure out how to set the mics up in any way that anybody could hear anything because there was so much din in the background of the exhibit hall. And it was just like people were like crowding in against the stage trying to hear what the presenters were saying, and it was
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, if it's any consolation, Bob, that unlike that year, this year we do have a professional third-party entity handling all the logistics of the show and staging and all of that stuff. So hopefully it'll be much better.
Fresh off the closing of the Blakely, we're here to set up your sound system.
All right. Well, they
Uh,
finished at the Blakely. They got it all taken care of. It's all done.
good.
There's free
And
stuff
then
at the Blakely
Friday,
these days.
if you are at Tech Show on Friday, we are doing this show live and in person at 2 o'clock Central Time, I think.
Yeah, which is
Actually, the
free.
same
Yeah.
time as this show normally.
Yeah.
And I'm
We'll
having
figure out some
some,
way to stream it,
we might
right?
figure out some way to at least stream it out over via iPhone or something.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna record the audio, and somehow we'll record the video. But hopefully we can just set it up and stream it out over Zoom next week, so we can actually do a live show, but live from Tech Show. I don't know how that'll work. We'll see. Uh, all right. Any other closing thoughts on Legal Week or opening thoughts on Tech Show or just random thoughts that have nothing to do with anything?
We all have to rest up. This weekend's important.
We do have to rest up.
Yeah. And
All
hopefully
right.
no
Well,
one's sick and we make it to Tech Show. Knock on wood, we don't all come down with something like on.
Right. No kidding.
yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in this week and looking forward to seeing a lot of you in Chicago next week. And hope you watch us live next week from Chicago. See you then.
Long, everybody.
Wow.
Oh.